Okay, good evening, and thank you for attending the October 18th meeting of the Arcata City Council. The City Council meeting is being held as a hybrid meeting with both in-person attendance and teleconference access via Zoom. Our first item this evening is a land acknowledgement. The City of Arcata acknowledges that the lands we are located on are the unceded ancestral lands of the Wiyot people. The land that Arcata rests on is known in the Wiyot language as Gudini, meaning over in the woods or among the redwoods. Past action by local, state, and federal governments have removed the Wiyot and other indigenous peoples from their land and have threatened to destroy their cultural practices. The City of Arcata acknowledges the Wiyot community, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. This acknowledgement seeks to aid in dismantling the legacy narratives of settler colonialism. If you would like to join us now, please stand for the flag salute. Will the city manager please call the roll?
Yes. Mayor Schaefer?
Here.
Vice Mayor Matthews?
Here.
Councilmember Stillman? Councilmember Atkins-Salazar?
Here.
And Councilmember White is absent. But we have a quorum.
All right. If you wish to make comment during this meeting, either at the two open public comment periods or for an individual agenda item, there are 3 ways to do so. If you're here in person, please line up behind the podium when the item you would like to speak on is accepting public comment. If you're logged onto Zoom, click raise your hand when it is time for comment on the item you wish to speak. And if you are on your phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand, and when it's your turn, you will be prompted to dial *6 to unmute yourself. For each item, we will take in-person public comment first, then move to online comments. We will not go back and forth, so if you want to comment, please line up at the podium or raise your electronic hand when public comment is requested for that item. And so that takes us to our first early oral communications period. And this 15-minute period is to allow people to address the council for matters not on the agenda. So no, pursuant to the Brown Act, that we cannot, as a council, discuss or take action on items not listed on the posted agenda. And at the end of oral communications, the council may respond to statements and supported requests that require council action will be set for a future agenda or referred to staff. Speakers will be limited to 2 minutes for early oral communications, and there will also be time for public comment specifically on each agenda item, and again at the end of the meeting under item 12. So please make your way to the podium if you have one of those cards, and you can just set the card on the table there or on the podium, and we will be taking the first early oral communication. So please line up at that podium to start that process. Take it away.
All right. Hi, I'm Anoa Gutierrez. I'm a member of the board of directors for the Humboldt Association of Tennis. HAT is a 501c3 recognized nonprofit. HAT serves to improve the mental and physical health in our communities on and off the court. Our objectives are inspired by supporting a thriving, diverse community with an emphasis on these 4 pillars: youth and family, environmental stewardship, providing opportunity and equality, and recognizing the importance of mental health and physical well-being. We believe this will have a lasting impact in future generations for our community. We wanted to come here today to say that we value the facilities at Larson Park. The park and the associated tennis facilities have been a source of enjoyment for our community. In the future, we'd like to partner with the City of Arcata to look at ways of enhancing facilities and programs that impact our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, we will take speaker number 2 now. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Rabbi Eliyahu Cowan, and I run the Chabad Jewish Center here in Arcata. And although it's global news, the war that's happening in Israel is affecting us locally as well. We are all traumatized by the horrific attacks of Hamas on the Israeli civilians, and a lot of people are hurting right now. And I just want to call to attention that it's very important for us to recognize that we can do something about it. Each and every action of goodness and kindness that we increase here in our neighborhood has a global impact on all of our brothers and sisters around the world. And in this very troubling time, make sure to reach out to your friends, ensure that they're okay. The mental health of a lot of individuals is going through some very challenging times right now. And rather than feeling helpless or asking the question, why God, oh why, we can answer the question, what can I do about it? And we could always add in acts of goodness and kindness.
Thank you. Next in-person speaker.
Good evening. My name is Joanne McGarry. I did send you an email yesterday. I am happy, not happy, I am willing and wanting to talk to each and every one of you on the dais there after the meeting or at another time soon. But I stand here today at this point in time to remind everybody that I was in San Francisco in 1989 when the earthquake hit, and tomorrow, October 19th, is the Great Shakeout. And I know I've done this before, but if people are watching, get your go bag ready, but don't go with your go bag until you've ducked, covered, and held on. So while things are shaking, don't try and move outside. But when you move outside, make sure you have everything you could possibly need to get to a safe place if need be. So that's what I basically wanted to say at this point in the meeting. And again, I would be very willing to talk to all the council members at a later time about my email. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more in-person early oral communications? Not seeing anybody, we will take it out to the Zoom community.
Just double checking, but we have no online early oral.
All right. That'll take us now to item 8 on our agenda this evening, which is the consent calendar. All matters on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the City Council and are enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items, and if discussion is required, that item can be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. At the end of the reading of the consent calendar, council members or members of the public can request that an item be removed for discussion. So item A, approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of October 4th, 2023. B, biweekly report on disbursements. Item C, adopt resolution number 234-15, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Arcata approving the zero-emission bus rollout plan for Arcata and Mad River Transit System. Item D, adopt resolution number 234-12, authorizing the destruction of certain city records maintained by the city relating to the departments of city manager, contracts and special projects, personnel, city clerk, environmental services, community development, and finance permitted under section 34090 of the California Government Code and the Secretary of State's Local Government Records Program. And item E, approve a new proclamation in recognition of Dia de los Muertos, November 1st and 2nd, 2023. And we will consider this on the consent calendar and then read it afterwards. So do we have any members of the council that would like to remove an item from consent?
Yes, I would like to remove item B, please.
Okay, we have item B removed. Any other items from council or members of the public wishing to remove items? Okay, not seeing, then do we have a motion for items A, C, D, and E?
I'll make a motion to approve items A, C, D, and E.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Matthews, second by Councilmember Stillman. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously, and we pulled item B. So Alex, if you want to go ahead,
Yes.
make a comment.
So, there, under transactions, and this is on page B.8.B.A. So I have a tenant that's taking advantage of the tenant and help assistance program. And so once a month, I will get a check. And my name will always be in this every first of the month until the program ends or she no longer is using it. So I'm just letting you know that. And I'm assuming I'll have to pull it every first of the month over and over.
You won't need to pull the item. If you just want to recuse yourself, you can do that. And then you can still proceed to the vote, and we can just list
So
you as...
I can recuse myself and not vote on the consent calendar at all.
You would still vote on the consent calendar. We would just note your recusal on that item.
Okay. All right.
So you can even make a
It's
motion.
part of transparency.
All right,
Okay.
then I will make a motion for item B.
I'll approve. Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Atkins Salazar and a second by Vice Mayor Matthews. All in favor on item B? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries
Abstain.
3 and 1 abstention. All right, that takes us to the end of the consent calendar. Oh, yes, and we're going to read the proclamation. Thank you for, I even said it out loud and I forgot. So, yes, Councilmember Akin Salazar will read our proclamation for Dia de los Muertos.
It's okay. We're doing things a little bit differently, so, we're learning. So first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to read this proclamation because this is a very important tradition in my family. It has been for many years. So this is in recognition of Dia de los Muertos. Whereas Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, is a traditional Mexican holiday celebrated on November 1st and 2nd. It is a time to honor and celebrate deceased loved ones, blending both mourning and celebration. Altars or ofrendas are created to remember the departed, and it is a belief that the spirits of the deceased return to be with their families during this period. And whereas Los Bagels offers a unique blend of Mexican and Jewish foods and celebrations, and Dia de los Muertos is its co-owner Dennis Real's most beloved holiday because it emphasizes a perspective on death that marries sincerity and humor. And whereas Los Bagels crafted the traditional dead bread, or pan de muerto, a Mexican sweetbread representing humans or bones, standing out as one of the only bakeries north of San Francisco to do so. Beyond bread, Los Bagels boasts a range of festive Day of the Dead items, especially calacas, clay figurines. Dennis Real personally sources these handmade pieces from Oaxaca, Mexico, maintaining a 35-year partnership with artisans Maria Dolores and her husband. And whereas Dia de los Muertos will be marked with a community event in Arcata on Sunday, October 29th, featuring a procession parade at 4 p.m. from the Jardín Sanctuary Garden, culminating at the Arcata shop. The evening promises free food from Esteban's Pan de Muerto and a memorable experience. And whereas from Saturday, October 21st to Thursday, November 2nd, a community ofrenda will be set up at the Jacoby Storehouse. An ofrenda is a traditional altar made to honor and remember deceased loved ones during Dia de los Muertos, adorned with photos, flowers, candles, food, and personal mementos. Everyone is warmly invited to contribute and add to this collective memorial. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Arcata hereby recognizes November 1st and 2nd, 2023 as celebratory dates for Dia de los Muertos, and it's signed today, October 18th, by our Mayor, Sarah Schaefer. And I don't think we have anyone here to pick it up, so we will get that to them.
We will make sure it gets to Dennis and the crew at Los Bagels, so thank you, and looking forward to the event. All right, that takes us to new business. And so our first item A, is to conduct a public hearing to receive input regarding unmet transit needs and direct staff to forward all comments to the Humboldt County Association of Governments. So may we have a staff report?
Yes, good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the public. This is our annual unmet transit need public comments. So the goal here is to get the public comments on our unmet transit needs. Normally, we don't have a presentation for this, but this year we have a presentation from HCOG staff. We'll be doing a quick presentation of our state of the regional transit. And then after that, we will be taking public comments. And once we get the public comments, we'll be forwarding that to HCOG that they will be including in their final report of unmet transit needs. So with that, we have Steve Luther from HCOG who will be doing a quick presentation of our transit here.
Great. Well, thank you, Natra, and I'm Stephen Luther with HCOG, the Humboldt County Association of Governments. And yeah, we don't usually do a presentation, but we do this process every year, so I wanted to take the opportunity to present some big picture information about the state of public transit and share that information with yourself and the public. So this is the outline that I'll go through tonight, kind of starting with a lot of numbers and data about transit, and then get into some of the exciting updates that are happening. So the unmet transit needs hearings are around the use of the local transportation funds, which is a portion of a local sales tax that comes back to jurisdictions. And the highlighted amount is the amount that has come to the city of Arcata in the most recent fiscal years. There are provisions to use that money for non-transit purposes, but in Arcata, all of the money is used for public transit. So the Humboldt Transit Authority is definitely the largest transit agency in the county. In the last year, there were 446,000 boardings. 60,000 of those were users of the Jack Pass. And The total operating expenses for HTA were about 6.5 million, and they returned about $1 million of that in farebox. This is just a look at the most recent year's ridership figures, and you can see the steep decline that occurred during COVID, but also the folks that continued to use transit as a means of necessary transportation. And then in recent years, it has been climbing back up again. So we are seeing more and more riders. And it's a similar story for the Arcata and Mad River transit system. Seeing a general pattern of increasing ridership and projecting another 35% increase this coming year. So these are some of the performance standards that we look at to evaluate transit needs in this process. This one is the farebox return ratio, which is basically how much is collected in fares versus how much the service costs to operate. The minimum to be considered an unmet need reasonable to meet is 10%. And then some other standards that we look at are operating subsidy per passenger trip, and as well as passenger trips per vehicle service hour. And we can see that this standard is starting to increase as more riders are getting on the bus. So getting into some of the updates, HTA is working on a branding effort under Ride Humboldt. And the idea there is that instead of having all these 7 transit lines, each with their own kind of look and bus tickets and fares, to unite those all under a single brand while importantly maintaining the identity of, in particular, the Arcata and Mad River Transit. But one of the things that they're doing is using credit card tap-to-pay validators, which allows you to basically transfer between any of these services using just a single credit card. There's a good discount for if you, from your first tap when you get on, however many times you transfer, it's just $2. And that goes across different systems. So you can get on, say, in Willow Creek, and then get onto the AMRTS, or get onto the RTS and go to Eureka, all for $2. And another great value is the monthly pass, which is $50. You can buy that on the transit app and use that on all the different services. Also under the Ride Humboldt brand is microtransit. It's kind of like an Uber or Lyft for public transit. The next pilot that is will be occurring very soon is opening up the Eureka Dial-A-Ride for to the general public, and folks will be able to download an app from their app store, just make an account, and be able to punch in where they're trying to go and get a ride in about 15 minutes. And we're looking to expand those pilots to various other communities, including, I know there's some interest in Arcata. And it could also work for Bayside. A few other new services that everybody's very happy about: the Green and Gold service, which I think most folks are aware of here, providing service between Valley West and Cal Poly. Also this year, the Yurok Tribe Transportation Department restarted a service from Orleans to Wichipec to Willow Creek. Another one to look out for is the Redwood Coast Express, which will be starting in January 2024, and that'll be filling a critical gap from Eureka down to Ukiah, and then people can connect to the public transit system all the way down to the San Francisco Bay Area. Just to conclude with a few of the known transit needs that we often hear for more frequent service, in Arcata particularly this year and last year, I heard a need for service to Bayside, Sunday service on all the different routes, later night service on Fridays and Saturdays especially, and then just earlier and later service. The earlier and later service, HTA is working to restore back to pre-COVID hours, to have just an earlier morning and a later evening run. And they have hired some more bus drivers to be able to do that. And then we're also working on Sunday service for the RTS and later night service between Arcata and Eureka specifically. A lot of people want to be able to get to Arts Alive and be able to come back. So we're working on funding that. There has been, until very recently, a need for more bus drivers. We did hear that they've been successful in filling some positions, but there is also need, and it's a great career, so check that out if people are interested. And then I'm taking comments on the unmet transit needs until December 31st, and there's an online survey if folks aren't able to comment tonight. And I appreciate any comments. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You've already said all the unmet transit needs I was going to say, so that's great. And I know that you guys are probably getting a lot of those similar comments. And just to add, I don't know, Nacho, you probably don't have these numbers at your fingertips, but I was really impressed with the excitement about the new green and gold route when we had our Cal Poly liaison meeting, and that ridership is way up and that people are using it. So that's great to hear and shows that it was a needed route in our community. So anything, questions, clarifying things from the council or comments before we open it up to the public to comment on unmet transit?
Just really quickly, the micro transit, or is that the same hours as the regular bus route, or is it kind of anytime?
Yeah, that would be similar hours, like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Stevie, for the presentation, and let the public know that if you aren't speaking up tonight or can't find information, I am the liaison to HCOG, so you can also email me any of your unmet transit needs, and I will make sure that they get to Stevie.
And I'm also the liaison to HTA, so I can actually do the very same things. And we appreciated your presentation at the last HTA meeting. Humboldt Transit Authority is HTA. So thank you. And I think one of the most exciting parts of it is where you're going to be able to pick up dial a ride was the old term for it, and be able to go from one place to another if you're in the right location.
All right, let's open it up to public comment. So if you are here in person and wishing to comment on unmet transit needs, head up to the podium, or if you're on Zoom, raise that hand. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Joanne McGarry, and I've been to many of these meetings about our transit because, as you all know, I'm not driving a car now and relying a lot on public transit to get me places. I'm fortunate that I have a Jack Pass that allows me to not have to worry about fumbling for change or buying a monthly pass or anything like that. I do have a sort of an equity issue because I know a lot of people who do ride public transit are not of means in a lot of ways. It's the way they can get around, but that means also sometimes people don't have a phone or a credit card or the ability to go to where you need to go to get that kind of pass type of thing. And then there are those of us who choose, and then those who don't even have a phone, so cannot do this app discounted type of thing. So I would like to suggest that one of the incentives to me of taking the bus is that if it's easy and convenient and not complicated at the door, and oftentimes I find that people are trying to figure out or bring up the app on their phone, and there's this whole huge delay. In the best of all possible worlds, I would love to see us not having to rely on fares for public transit, and just everybody hop on the bus instead of getting in a car or, walking if they need to go a long distance. But the equity issue of the cost of a fare is something I'm really concerned about. And the only way you can get that $2 fare from Willow Creek to Eureka or whatever is to be able to tap your credit card. And my credit union doesn't even have that on the credit cards that I have. So just keep thinking equity, and not everybody's got the smartest phone in the whole world, and some people don't want the smartest phone in the whole world. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Any other in-person comments on unmet transit needs? Thank you.
Good evening. I'd point out the safety element as far as buses, especially after dark, and especially for women. I don't see any women standing at bus stops after darkness, and there's probably a reason because there's lots of information about this. So I'm wondering what's being done to address that. And I would even mention, even for, you're making the recommendations, the head and what more usage of with buses in the future, which is a good idea. But how are you addressing all these particular safety issues? And I know, I mean, transportation systems like Los Angeles that have put a lot of money and time into their metro, this is a big concern, and I've read quite a few articles about that. And even ask yourself, I mean, a majority of you here tonight probably live within 5 minutes of City Hall. Did you walk over here, or well, I think maybe you did, but a few others didn't. So I'm just pointing out that there may be a reason why you feel like you have to drive over here. It's because you don't want to go home and walk through the city. It may not be that comfortable and safety for you. So, I mean, I understand that, but you're asking for basically the working poor that can't afford cars to use transportation. That's kind of like what everybody's doing across the U.S. I'm not picking on Arcata in any way on this, but that's what's happening. And I don't think that there's any sign that people are going to give up their cars. I think they're going to head towards electric cars, which is a good thing, but they're going to justify having a car because not only the convenience, but also electric car. They're going to say from the environmental standpoint, they're going to feel like, you know, they're doing the right thing. So this is like a big issue because not only do you probably not have enough bus routes for people, I mean, it's a lot of work. When I go to other cities to try to get to one point, you know, it's several buses. You got to be waiting a long time for it, and there's definitely, even for a male, security issues there. So, you know, I support public transportation, but this whole idea that somehow the city, that everybody's going to give up their car and hop on the transportation system is a little unreasonable here. And I really think that you need to start thinking about, you know, workplaces and living in the same area so that can actually come true, and not, you know, where are people going to go work? You know, doesn't seem like a lot of jobs are being manufacturing are high tech and Arcata, so they have to go someplace. And if not going to be a car, then they're going to have to use mass transit. And I think it's going to be difficult to get to a place on time. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, not seeing any other in-person comments. Do we have anybody on Zoom?
We don't have any online communications for this item.
Okay. Any final thoughts from the council before we close this hearing? All right. Well, thank you very much for the presentation, Stevie, and thank you for everybody at HCOG for doing the legwork on this. All right. Our next item, item B, is going to be consider opposing the Humboldt Cannabis Reform Initiative, and we will have a staff report from Community Development Director David Loya.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. My name is David Loya. I'm the Director of Community Development. And we have on the item that you have before you tonight is to consider a position on Measure A, the Humboldt Cannabis Reform Initiative, which was brought forward to my attention by the Humboldt Cannabis Growers Alliance. And I did receive a public comment from them. That's attachment A in your staff report. But I want to emphasize that the staff report, while it's brief in its coverage of the matters because of the timeline that I had to prepare a staff report, I tried to touch on many of the issues that I came to the conclusion of through my own research. And so I wanted to emphasize, even though this was brought to my attention by the Humboldt Cannabis Growers Association, this reflects my independent analysis. So just to back up a little bit, I wanted to fill in for you what Measure A is, and to really clarify that it is not it does not affect the regulations within the city of Arcata. So Measure A is a ballot initiative that would, if adopted, amend the county's general plan, its zoning regulations, and its coastal program, its local coastal program with respect to cannabis cultivation. I did put a reference to the full text of the the initiative or how to get there in the staff report. I'm not sure you had time to read it. It's quite lengthy, but it does call for many changes to the regulatory framework within the county. As I mentioned, it doesn't affect cultivation in the city of Arcata. We do allow for cultivation in the city of Arcata through our own permitting process, and it would not affect that. It would only affect lands in the county at large. But I do believe that it will have secondary effects, in particular on our manufacturing sector that we've worked to try and cultivate and keep together, as cannabis has suffered many market shocks since it was first made legal. And so that's one of the primary reasons why staff is recommending that you consider opposing the measure if you choose to take a position on it at all. I think that there are, several other reasons that I brought forward in the staff report that I won't go over now because I know there are several people here tonight that wish to speak on this item, and I'd like you to hear it directly from them. But I am happy to answer any questions that you have. I also, again, recognize that I gave fairly light touch to the points that I was making in here. One commenter did point out that some of these they believed are speculation or aren't well supported. I concede that I don't have a heavy analysis in this staff report, but I did attach the county's analysis that it prepared for the Board of Supervisors as attachment B. And I'll note that, I and your staff agrees largely with the conclusions that were drawn into that staff report as well. And I'll just close by saying that, the public engagement period for this was fairly short. It was brought to my attention. I wanted to get it to the council's attention quickly. And so we did receive in your packet, as I mentioned, the Humboldt County Growers Association letter that they submitted with their analysis on the measure. We also received outreach. I reached out to the drafters of the initiative to make sure that they knew that you were considering this and that you could have their input as well. And so we did receive a letter late this afternoon from Mark Thurman. If you have not had a chance to read it yet, I wanted to emphasize that his main point was he wanted you to wait to make this decision, not to make the decision tonight because he and his collaborators would like to have more time to present their information to you. But he did try and highlight some of the concerns he had with the staff report and that communication. And then lastly, we received at least 11 other comments. I, in preparation for this meeting, sent out sort of a last minute notice to our commercial cannabis activity permit holders, the folks that I'm most concerned might be affected by this, to see if any of them had any comment. And, they universally were opposed to the measure of the letters that I received today. And I believe most of those have been sent to you as blue folder items. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have and otherwise turn it over to public comment.
Yeah, go ahead with questions, yeah.
So I would recommend that we hear from the public beforehand, if at all possible.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. So anything to clarify before we move to the public? All right. So you will have 3 minutes to make your public comment. If you would wish to comment on this item, please make your way up towards the podium and start kind of lining up. And we will hear from the public on this item, first in person and then on Zoom. So if you are on Zoom, now is a good time to get in line and click raise that hand. All right, take it away.
Good evening, City Council members, staff. My name is Russ Gordon. I'm the Policy Director with Humboldt County Growers Alliance. We're the trade association that represents licensed cannabis businesses in Humboldt County. We are very strongly opposed to this initiative and definitely understand the complexity of it. It's a 38-page initiative. 12 pages of that would add a new section to the general plan just for cannabis cultivation. Those 12 pages then have, tremendous effects on the 143 pages of cannabis ordinances that the county has. And so this is a very complicated initiative. It would have very far-reaching effects on the county's cannabis ordinances and essentially rewrite those ordinances. And I think the crux of the issue for us is that this has been presented as an initiative that's about restricting large-scale cultivation, and that's not true. And that's something that is discussed in your agenda packet. It's discussed in the planning department's report on this initiative. The restrictions that are contained in these 38 pages are applicable, almost all of them, to farms of every single size within the county. And the staff report for this item, I think, really draws out what that means, which in most cases it means freezing every single farm in the county in place not just in terms of their ability to add more permitted cultivation area, but in terms of their ability to add any sort of ancillary activity, any sort of infrastructure on their farm. So oftentimes those are infrastructure and activities that are needed to produce high quality cannabis. So we're talking about drying sheds, we're talking about environmental improvements like water storage or solar, normal things like barns, just very normal agricultural activities. All of that is essentially frozen in place in this initiative because of its definition of expansion. Zooming out for a second, understand, of course, it's very difficult to assess an initiative of this length and complexity and impact. And that's one reason why we feel that if we're looking at changes to the cannabis ordinance, it really needs to be through an open public process that happens through the Board of Supervisors, where every stakeholder is able to have input, and we're able to have real discussion and thoughtful discussion with all perspectives represented. This initiative was drafted without the input of farmers, but also without the input of regulators, without the input of environmental groups, without the input of public safety representatives. And so what you get is this complete rewrite that has not been vetted by anyone. And that's something which we think has the potential to have really catastrophic consequences for farmers in the county. You'll see in the planning department's analysis that they go so far as to say it may render cultivation in Humboldt County not viable. And I think that's a completely reasonable and really correct interpretation of what these restrictions would produce. Lastly, I want to just emphasize, it was mentioned this initiative affects the unincorporated parts of the county. That said, we really see a strong connection and relationship between the rural and urban areas of the county. And I know there are folks here who are operators within the county who I think will be able to speak much more directly to the ways in which the manufacturers, distributors, and retailers here in the city really depend on high quality cannabis produced by our small rural cultivators for their success and viability. So thank you for your consideration, and I hope you choose to oppose this initiative tonight.
Thank you. All right, next speaker.
Hi, Ken Hammock. I'm in the industry. I'm operating partner at the Gondry in McKinleyville. We have retail and distribution. Director Loy, I appreciate your comments today, and I'm glad that you included them, the county report. The planning department has been very clear that this would be an incredibly damaging initiative for not just the cannabis industry, but for our economy. This is one of the most prominent brands. If you go anywhere in the world, and if you just say Humboldt, they may not even know English, and they're doing this. So I'm one of the co-producers of CannaFest, which was a really beautiful event in Eureka this year in cooperation with the city of Eureka. There were many non-cannabis businesses that were with us over that weekend talking about Measure A. So I just closed with a couple things because really Ross really went through the details. This is a really an unfortunate initiative that I think should have been pulled a long time ago. Unfortunately, it's still due up next year. So the onus is on us to demonstrate how to defend our economy, not just the cannabis industry, but our economy against this measure. I've talked with a number of people that a couple of them in the industry that actually signed the petition that were basically told they were misinformed as they were signing it. And not everyone reads all the details. You just go, oh, well, if that's the intent, then I'm for that. I'm for the environment. Well, we are too. And we've been talking about the environment as we develop the land use ordinance for the county 1.0, 2.0. All this process included a lot of input from environmentalists, from farmers, from anybody else. And to disrupt that whole process is to not give voice to all those people that were part of it. Last thing I'll just say to end is this was not, there's no other agriculture, and we're an agriculture county. We're a very rural county. This is a big part of our economy. There was no other agriculture that was mentioned in this initiative. It was specifically targeted to cannabis. So I would just say this is something that I appreciate the city of Arcata paying attention to. I appreciate the planning department for the county supporting this initiative next year. And I would argue I haven't found anybody that does support it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ken. Next speaker, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Baron Lutz. I'm owner, CEO, and founder of S&B Water. We're a manufacturer and distributor. We're a micro business located on West End Road. I'm also own the property that we manufacture, distribute, and hold a license at on West End Road. Even though this does not affect our manufacturing directly, it definitely affects us indirectly. Currently, we source all of our raw material from local heritage farms in Humboldt. We don't source from outside of the area. And that's really important for us because all the money stays locally within the area. It stays in our local economy. If this measure does pass, I would have to go to other places to start sourcing as my business grows. And that will start bringing money outside of Arcata, and that's not what we want to see. Thank you for your time. I also want to express, as it's really important for farmers not to just be able to grow their cultivation, but be able to grow infrastructure on their farm to continue to increase quality. As the farm grows, as farms grow, we can also grow. That increases the amount of employees that I have. We moved from Willow Creek to Arcata because Arcata was so friendly in terms of the licensing process. And we'd like to stay here and keep expanding. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. All right, come on up.
Good evening, council members. My name is Michael Betancourt, and I stand before you asking for your support in opposing Measure A and the restrictions that it places on licensed family farms that call Humboldt County home. As Arcata residents and business owners, my wife and I, along with our business partner Jennifer, operate Pacific Paradise, one of the longest continuously operating downtown businesses. With the decision to become a licensed dispensary, that mission remained unchanged: support local farms and families that run them. We've become known for having one of the widest selections of locally grown flower in the area. Okay. And our customers not only expect that, they ask for it. Okay. When part-time residents or tourists come into Paradise for the first time, the first thing they ask for is, can I try some local flower? When our repeat customers come in, it's very often that they try a new farm and then they come back and try different strains from that farm. So these local farms, these small farms, have developed a following within our customer base. Every farmer I have spoken with is concerned about the passage of Measure A. Many say it will either drive them back into the underground economy or completely out of business, essentially destroying Humboldt's craft cannabis presence in the legal market. Without these small farms, product options would be reduced. Thus, dispensaries would be selling many of the same products, creating downward price pressure, resulting in reduced operating income that creates the need to find lower costs. We source many of our business services locally: graphic design, apparel, insurance, office supplies, printing. Okay? With this need to source lower costs, we would have to go outside of the area, again, taking money out of our local economy. As a small family-run business, we try to provide our employees with an attractive wage and benefits package. If we don't have these products from these small and mid-sized farms to differentiate ourselves, and operating income is compressed the way I'd expect it would be, okay, we would have to reconsider adjusting our staffing levels, lowering starting wages, and/or foregoing wage increases for our employees. Measure A does almost nothing to protect small farms, okay, as its proponents claim. Okay, but the ramifications from its passage would reach far beyond the cultivators and cut into our local economy. So I hope we can count on the council's support in opposing this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name's Paul Hagan. I've been a resident of Arcata since 1999. I'm an environmental and a land use attorney. I've been working in the field since 1989. And among other things, I've been a city planning commissioner for 9 years, so I know what it's like to sit up there 2 evenings a week at 6 o'clock. So thanks for that. I'm speaking in opposition to Measure A. I'd like to bring your attention to the initiative, not on its terms as it addresses cannabis cultivation, but rather the idea that, in my opinion, it's a hyperblown solution that's looking for some small problems to solve. The proponents for it have hired a very expensive and very talented law firm out of San Francisco to write the initiative. And while I realize that they have some legitimate concerns that they feel are not being addressed, and I feel that they believe they're operating in good faith, this is a classic situation in my mind of the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So despite their good intentions, you've heard already what the cannabis growers and commercial operators feel about it, and that's where it really lies. The initiative is a bad idea in its very face, and I'll give you 3 reasons why. Number one, it's complex legislation by initiative fiat. There's no public input of any type in this initiative, and it demands changes in the county's general plan and its ordinances, which you know yourself as city council members. Property calls for a great deal of public input. You've been through many months of the gateway planning, and you know what public input is supposed to be about. We don't have any of that here. Number two, it's enormously detailed. It's about 38 pages long, and the county staff itself has found it completely unworkable. John Ford, the director of the Planning and Building Department, has told the Board of Supervisors himself that. Number three, it can't be changed except by further initiative, and that makes it an anti-representative governmental fiat. As I mentioned earlier, it dismisses the county board's authority. It can only be amended by another initiative. So any positive outcomes that may be embedded in the initiative or sought in the initiative can only be addressed, and any flaws for that matter, and that's really where the flies in the ointment are, have to be addressed by another initiative. So what have we got with something that's essentially anti-democratic? It's anti-representative government in its very nature. Your own staff report puts out a few things to bring to your attention. The initiative will not promote its own goals. The county, as you have heard a little bit, went through, I think it was 16 different hearings to get together the first ordinance and then the second ordinance with all the general plan stuff. There's an enormous amount of public input into that, and again, we have none of that here. The initiative does not do anything to improve regulatory insight. I think it's a very problematic effort on its face, and again, I think it's just plain bad governance, and for that reason, I would urge you to take a strong stance against it. Thanks very much.
Thank you. All right, next commenter.
Good evening, council members. Natalie Delap on behalf of Humboldt County Growers Alliance. I'm here tonight on behalf of our 175 members, many of whom are busy with harvest. I just want to let you all know what kind of existential threat that this has been causing to our community for the last almost year and a half. After more than 8 years of going through the process with our county, through not one but 2 cannabis land use ordinances, working through state, first one iteration of state government and then another iteration of state government, water board, CDFW, our farmers have worked very, very, very hard to follow the rules that have been set by our community and by society at large. Cannabis was legalized by voters for adult use in 2016. Here we are threatening to put cannabis almost back to illegality through this voter initiative. The proponents went out to Arcata Farmers Market, to the county fair, and said, do you want to support small farmers? This is not supporting small farmers. There is not a single provision within this initiative that will be beneficial to small farmers or any farmer of any size. We have spent the last year and a half working with our county, attempting to work with the proponents of this initiative and asking them, you have the opportunity to voluntarily withdraw this initiative, and let's work together through a legitimate, honest public process, because we understand what it means to be frustrated by government. If you want to talk about who's frustrated, I'm sure most of the cannabis farmers have been a little bit frustrated with the government. We don't always get our way, but we have to do what is best for our community, what is best for our public health, public safety, and the environment. This initiative is not the way. This was brought forward with, whether it was good intent or bad intent, what we now know is that it is harmful. The proponents have the opportunity to pull this, and what we are looking for from you is leadership. We as cannabis farmers have said this is bad, And what we are asking from you tonight is to say, this is not good for Arcata, this is not good for our economy, this is not good government, this is not good for public safety, and this is not good for the environment. We need your support, and so thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Craig Johnson. My wife and I own Alpenglow Farms in southern Humboldt County in the Benbow area. It was about 31 years ago I came to the Arcata Plaza with a friend. We took a photo underneath the palm trees, and I thought, this is the most beautiful place in the world. And here we are today, all these years later. I've had 2 daughters born in the local hospital. My wife has graduated from HSU. We now own a home here in Bayside. And now we have this whole community here speaking to support us. It feels really, really good. And I'm just really humbled that everyone is taking time to listen to what we have to say. We own and operate a farm that's under 10,000 square feet, rain catchment, solar, and we've always had these practices. Before legalization, after legalization, we've always done the best to be stewards of the land. And you would think that we would want this proposition to go forward. It does not support us in any way. It really doesn't. You've heard the analysis from these other folks. So I ask you, please, to take a stance, support this community, and there's another trend that's happening, and that is the farmers, whether we have younger children or that we have older, we're getting older, or we have older parents in our families. The trend has been moving to Arcata for the services needed for schooling and so forth. So there's a lot of cannabis farmers that now either own a home here or are in the process of doing so. So you've heard from Baron Lutz earlier as well. He's one of our supply partners. 80% of our crop goes to his facility. We get our nursery stock from Source Nursery over on West End Road. So we kind of operate this regenerative supply chain, keeping it all here, all local, and really centric here in Arcata. So please, if you could support us once again today and vote no on Measure A, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, do we have anybody else in person who is wishing to comment on this item tonight? All right, not seeing anybody. Do we have anybody on Zoom?
We do. Our first online is titled Zoom User. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Tanasa Daniel, and I'm a 20-year resident of Arcata, and I appreciate your time, Mayor and Council. I just want to relate, there's 10,000 jobs at stake of local people and over 200 businesses that could go under if this passes. So I just really ask you to strongly oppose this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanasa. Anyone else online?
Okay, just checking one more time. I don't see any other online. Oh, one more. There it is. Call in user 1. Go ahead. Go ahead, call in user 1.
Yes. This is Mark Thurman calling. I'm one of the co-sponsors. I apologize for not being there in person. I'm trying to avoid driving at night, and I do apologize for my late letter. So I don't agree with most of what we've heard so far, obviously. The purpose of Measure A is to provide the environmental protections that would inform and guide, ordinances that derive from it. And we know that there are many supporters of the initiative from Arcata, many who clearly understood it and voted. I think it's important to bear in mind that a vote against Measure A would appear, at least for some, to be a vote against our environment, which might be considered a rude poke in the eye for a couple thousand Arcata residents who signed the initiative, and to really look at council for leadership in protecting our environment. I am asking the city council to delay a vote in order to give you time to carefully read the initiative and consider responses I offered in my letter. And if possible, I could meet with you or our co-sponsor, Betsy Watson, could meet with you to address questions you might have about the initiative, what it would do and what it not do. I think it'd be important to get clarification as to what we hear out, the claims and accusations and so forth, and pair those back to what really is being addressed in the initiative. A pause would also allow time for residents involved in the cannabis industry who are currently out of town to present their thoughts on the benefits of this initiative. So it's obvious some growers consider that they're victims of overregulations. I get that, and that there's no need for the county to do more. But I ask that you also consider that there are many residents out there who feel they are victims of the lack of regulation and the lack of enforcement of those regulations, where their health, safety, and welfare are being impacted. And importantly, the environment, our watersheds, rivers, are really also deserving of regulations. You know, they can't speak for themselves, the environments and ecosystems. Hopefully a decision that you make, if whichever way, would be predicated on clear facts and not disinformation or rumors or.
All right, thank you. That is your 3 minutes. We appreciate your comments. Thank you. All right, do we have anybody else online?
We do not.
All right, so I will bring it back to the council for any discussion, thoughts, motions, questions, all of the above.
So this last gentleman that spoke kept talking about environmental, focusing on the environmental benefits of Measure A. But from what I've read and from what I've heard, some of the regulations that this measure imposes would not allow these farms to upgrade things to benefit the environment. Is that correct?
I don't want to, step too far outside of the areas that I did evaluate around this. I don't have 100% handle on how those changes that that might be protective of the environment would fit within the regulatory framework. I defer to the county's analysis of that. And so, I focused primarily on the information that I received. I did talk to a number of regulators, and I know, being the city government, we have an enforcement responsibility as well. And I know from my experience that enforcement takes a long time, and that not everyone is happy with our enforcement actions. I've heard the same thing from folks operating in the cannabis industry or that are involved in this, that they've either felt that there have been too much enforcement or not enough enforcement. When I spoke to regulators who are regulating the industry directly, in particular a point of contact I made at the water board, they felt like the cannabis program is one of the most heavily regulated of their programs, more so even than timber, which arguably has potentially higher potential for environmental impact. So I think those are the things that I would put within the context, for thinking about how how the current regulation is protective of the environment, and whether the additional regulation actually translate into additional enforcement is highly questionable. So if there's a concern about the enforcement, creating additional regulation doesn't then create additional enforcement. Are some of the things that I thought about in preparing the staff report. I primarily focus on opposition to this in relation to how it will impact the the sectors that we're trying to cultivate within the city of Arcata, no pun intended. And when I look at the limitations, I mentioned in the staff report, the limitations on, cultivation are just slightly higher than the limitations that we have on cultivation within the city limits. And so, to my way of thinking, when our industry, when we set this out, we purposefully established that the intent was to have cultivation happen in the county, in the unincorporated areas, and hopefully, in at least in partial, open door, outdoor conditions, and that product then would come into our manufacturing sector, and that we would then process that, and that we anticipated that would be, the farms would be, large enough to continue to support that effort. We did allow for, small cultivation sites. We allow up to 4,000 square feet for, for in city limit with a use permit cultivation. So the scaling of that, I haven't done any kind of, financial analysis on that, but the scaling, to my way of thinking, it just doesn't add up. And so I think there are several problems with the way that the ordinances or the initiative is proposed to have the ordinance be written, that we ought to be skeptical about how that's going to affect our sector that we're trying to cultivate in the city.
Yeah, and I know that this measure will affect countywide, but I think our job is to consider how it's going to affect Arcata. And I know that the businesses in a whole in Arcata are already struggling from the almost collapse of this industry. And I think that, from what these speakers have said, and there's speakers from all sorts of jobs in cannabis, farmers and dispensaries and the Growers Alliance, and just the loss of jobs and local businesses. I don't think that Arcata can afford that. So,
may I go next? Okay. So I think it's a really bad idea to have a piece of legislation or have a referendum or initiative on the ballot that sets laws that are going to go into like the cannabis industry. So I don't support that, because then if you ever want to change it, you're going to have to go out and have another ballot. You're going to have to get enough people to sign another petition so you can get it onto the ballot to make any changes if it doesn't work. And so I don't support this, and if you're ready without any other questions, I would move to not support this item.
I'll second it, but I don't know, Stacy might have some questions.
I don't have questions, but I have a lot of comments. So I do appreciate you including the county analysis in our packet. And so kind of the comments that I've come up with are based on the reading and conversations that I had with folks regarding this. These are all concerns that I have. I think first and foremost is public process. And some of the commenters actually stated that very well, so I won't go over that again. But I feel like that is one of my top reasons. The ability to amend or make changes should it become voted on in an actual ordinance is also concerning, because that is an important part of especially for environmental concerns, is being able to move quickly on things. And although I think that the authors could very well have good intentions, there are a whole host of possibilities of unintended consequences, which I'm sure everyone here can relate to from what happened as California legalized. It wasn't smooth, and there's been and continues to be a lot of suffering. And as far as the environment, I absolutely think that is a priority, and I'm not saying that there can't be, or maybe there should be, some improvements, because quite often we always do have room to improve, and things do change, and I absolutely support that. But I think the bigger issue is that if the purpose of this is for the environment, then the focus should be on the illegal farms that are doing the vast majority of damage to the environment. So I think that maybe the focus should be turned around and put in that direction. So I obviously don't support it.
Right on. Oh.
So could I move?
I want to talk, Alex.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I haven't got to talk yet. Go ahead and talk. I agree with everything that has been said. No, just kidding. And I just want to add that I, of course, being a political nerd, when I went to go hear music and have fun at CannaFest, I found myself at the no on Measure A, no on Humboldt Cannabis Reform Initiative booth, talking to people for like an hour, because there was just so many people that, whether they're farmers or own a dispensary or just work in the industry, that are opposed to it for all the reasons that we've listed tonight. And seeing money go out of our local economy when we're kind of at this point in time where we're trying to scramble and jumpstart our local economy, and we're looking at new and creative things, especially within the cannabis industry, of treating craft cannabis like we treat microbreweries, and moving towards cannabis tourism and being able to have industries in Arcata and Humboldt County wide that are creative and want to jumpstart our economy and get us moving towards when things are better. But if, in my mind, and from what I've heard from farmers and what I've heard from members of this cannabis community, that honestly, like, this is going to be the nail in the coffin for the cannabis industry in Humboldt County. And so for those reasons, also the planning piece too. I mean, just seeing so many members of the public engaged in this initiative, yet they don't have any ability to give feedback on it and improve it and be, part of a stakeholder group that would inform this planning is, absolutely ridiculous. And so for that, I oppose it. And I believe we already had a motion and a second on the table.
Actually, it probably isn't.
But you can make it more official.
Yes.
Our clerk isn't here to tell us
Because
it's
if
not the right
Bridget was
motion.
here, she probably wouldn't like that. So I would move opposing the Humboldt Cannabis Reform Initiative. And it sounds like I don't have to authorize you as the mayor to communicate that to the public.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councilmember Stillman and a second from Vice Mayor Matthews. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and that carries unanimously. So thank you folks for
Thank
coming
you
out
all for
tonight.
coming.
And also thank you to the county and John Ford for doing a lot of the legwork and providing, the information that informed a lot of our decision as well. And to our Board of Supervisors for also, voting to oppose this initiative as well. So thank you folks for coming out.
And thank you to staff for doing an analysis in an area that you may not have been expecting to work tonight. So thank you.
All right.
And thank you guys for all you do for our economy. We appreciate it.
All right. That takes us to our final item on our agenda this evening, which is going to be to adopt resolution number 234-13, amending resolution number 167-36, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Arcata establishing school zone speed limits on city streets and roads. Take it away.
Good evening again. Sorry. The item in front of you today is to update our existing resolution to regulate some speed limits in the school zone. Our current resolution, which was passed in 2017, is okay. It's okay. We good? Oh, no, don't be sorry. That's good. This is a simple staff report. So, so our current resolution, which was adopted in 2017, is based on Assembly Bill 321, which needed to have a ETS, which stands for Engineering and Traffic Survey, to be in place to implement the or to regulate the speed limits. But recently, Assembly Bill 43 was passed, which allowed us to regulate the speed limits in the zones or the school zones without doing engineering and traffic studies. So that's why we are updating this. And in the initial resolution, we did not have all the schools, and since then, there are more schools in place. So that's why we are doing this. In addition to this, in AB 43, there are other aspects of speed regulations, which includes we can reduce the speed limit in the other streets to up to 20 miles per hour. And there are some senior zones or senior housing areas where you can reduce the speed limit to 15 miles per hour. There's area of business activity centers, we can reduce the speed limits to 15 miles per hour. There are some regulations on that, but we have not discussed this item yet at TSC, and this will be talked in the future meetings. So once it goes through TSC and gets some approval, we'll bring it back for your consideration. So That's the plan for now. But for now, just these schools which are listed in this resolution will be having a 50 miles per hour speed limit. So with that, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, but it's pretty straightforward item.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that whole part about the senior zones and the business zones, I was absolutely going to say, I'd love to talk about that, but absolutely run it through the Transportation Safety Committee first. But I mean, this is something that I've wanted for a long time. So, yeah. Yep.
So I would say it's one way to slow traffic down on K Street, and that it will help. And Highway Patrol always likes to pull someone over on 101 and just stand there and talk to them or whatever, and they know everybody slows down for miles on both sides of the freeway. So I feel putting something of this nature in is people are going to slow down, and they may not speed up. They may just continue at 15 miles an hour until they get down to K Street or wherever they're going. So I think it's a great idea for us to do this. And I know there's other places that over by Arcata Elementary. I hope that something can happen in that area also.
And yeah, I think we've all expressed our desire for safety. And so I am all for what everyone said. And also I think we do know that just posting a speed limit, doesn't solve all the problems. So we still want to move forward with the other ways that we can, force us all to slow down. So yeah, thank you.
But 15 miles an hour is really, really slow. So,
yep. It is slow.
But no, it's good. But I'm just saying, I've been trying to drive that speed sometimes to just see how slow it is, and it's good. But that's great. That's, I guess, the point.
And if you post 15, though, maybe people will actually at least just drive 25, finally, on K Street, on Alliance.
I was tailgated, down at K Street the whole way the other day. I'm like, don't you know who I am? Don't tell me.
It's the same way people feel on 101 when they have to drop down around Indianola for 40 miles. And, with the signs there, everybody, they start to slow down except for those that are headed somewhere fast. So with that, does anyone else want to move for adoption of number 234-13?
It's a no-brainer, but we're going to take it out to public comment.
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing. I do appreciate.
We could have a motion and second, and we still can take public comment.
But I do want to say that I really appreciate the police department, because I have seen them out during drop-off time, during pick-off time, a lot, and I really appreciate their presence lately. Watch out. Yeah.
All right, let's take it out to public comment.
Be meaningless because there is no enforcement of any traffic laws in the city of Arcata. And just to verify this, I'm going to give the city manager a little project for her to look into the police traffic stop records for the last 7 years, because I just read in a few weeks ago in the city of Eureka and other cities, and they posted this. And for the city of Eureka in 2020, it was over 5,000 stops. And then during COVID, it dropped to almost about 2,000. So that's an example of a city that's actually trying to attempt to do something about it. And here, how many is it here? I've said this for the last 2 years that I've seen nothing happening from traffic stops. And I know this because I went to the police 2 years ago, and they said that it's not a priority for the city leaders, and that I should go to you and make a point about this so that we put some emphasis on this, because what you're doing is just this, in my opinion, just this phony little, act like we're going to pretend like we're doing anything, and we're not doing anything. And I'll give you some evidence of that too. Just over a month ago, I don't know if I said it to you, but I said to the Planning Commission that college girl got hit and was in critical condition and had 4 surgeries in Santa Rosa. They would have flown her out, but it was fogged in, so they had to drive her down there. And then I was too pissed off to come to the last session, because then after that, there was an incident at Wells Fargo at what's that, G and 11th. Another person got hit, and there's a picture of that. The person's down in critical condition. So that's 2 within a month. And I've been driving at this for 2 years. And what's there to show for it? Nothing. And this is a problem that's not just here in Arcata. This is a problem that's throughout California, because just last Friday, along with the thousands of bills that was on the governor's cable, the sign was another one from the standpoint that it was going to be mandatory for lights, for cameras at lights to catch people that are speeding and, you know, going through the red lights too. We don't have too many of those here. And so it's a big issue, and nothing is being done here. And so I'm just shocked. And I'll remind you again, in the beginning when you took over your jobs, your job is to enforce this. You swore on the book to uphold the laws of the state of California, and that is a law, and you're not upholding that law. And also, you're not upholding the sound. That was another issue. So you're just like saying, oh, we don't need to deal with that. So you will be held accountable, because I haven't forgotten about this. I just gave you some more time because you said that, you know, the police department is going to be increasing. I have seen nothing change.
Hi, my name's Joanne McGarry, and I don't drive in a car a lot at all anymore. When I do, I'm in the passenger seat, and I notice how fast people go. Being outside of a car and being on the roads and the streets, I notice that people in cars kind of are in a bubble. They're in a bubble, and they don't really realize the speed that they're driving, whether it's within the speed limit or not. And there's a real disconnect between people in the car driving and people around them noticing the speeds that are happening in cars. And so I think this is a good first step. I think, as Gregory said, maybe it's time for our city and our elected representatives to do a lot more public awareness vocality on this issue, not just changing something in the speed zones around schools and stuff. Just a lot more public education, a lot more public visibility, and whatever that means in terms of you getting out holding stop signs or signs saying, you know, we want you to slow down, or you need to slow down, and we need a safe city. However that happens, let's get out on the streets. I'll join you. But this is a worthwhile thing. But again, just doing something here when nobody's, you know, necessarily attentive, we got to get their attention. This is a really important safety issue. So let's get their attention, and let's figure out how to do it cleverly, creatively, and, you know, effectively. So thanks.
Car free. All right, those are our in-person comments. Do we have anybody on Zoom?
We do. Our first one is JB. Go ahead, JB.
Hello to council. This is Jim. And anyway, I do support the lowering of the speed limit, especially down to 15 miles an hour around the schools. I think it's a good first step on K Street, you know, especially in terms of the North Coast, Redwood Coast Montessori School. Hopefully moving forward, you can look into reducing parking, at least more visibility on the corners, so both the cars that are easing their way out, hopefully, and especially the pedestrians and the cyclists will have clear visibility. Anyway, I thanks for this. I think it's a really good first step. I have noticed the drivers on K Street being a little bit better, but I think this is going to be really necessary, especially with that school that at this point in time that there is really no speed limit reduction there. Anyway, thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim. Any other online comments?
Yeah, our next speaker is Patricia. Go ahead, Patricia.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Yes, I would definitely like the idea of doing a 15-mile-per-hour speed limit in front of Redwood Coast Montessori on K Street and other schools within Arcata. I also would be just maybe interested in doing more prominent crosswalk in front of schools, especially across K Street there, K and 8. That's, you know, you all know I live right in that neighborhood, and I've seen some pretty scary near misses with kids crossing to go to school there. I also really like the idea of doing all of K Street 20 miles per hour. And I know people do tailgate. They hate it when you do that. But maybe if, you have the speed limit on your side, you can just kind of ignore them. So I also like the idea of getting Dan Burden back and working with Arcata on both K and 11th, and especially, but maybe other areas of Arcata, just to kind of slow down traffic there as well. And I know it's 15 miles per hour in front of the Redwood Coast Montessori in Manila, which is like a really small kind of country road. And I've always been impressed by that speed limit there, even though it is, a kind of a slow road to begin with. I appreciate that it's 15 miles per hour. So, thanks. I really think 15 miles per hour and 50 miles per hour in front of all schools is really necessary, and maybe some a little bit better signage too of approaching school, because I know on K Street the signage is not all that obvious that you're approaching a school. So, anyways, thank you so much for putting this forward. I think it's long. I think it's crucial for the safety of our kids throughout Arcata. So thank you so much.
All right, we have no more online public comment.
Can I ask, actually, I am asking a question now, because I'm looking at the list and I actually maybe see something that's missing. What about Union Street Charter? It's on the bottom of Union Street by Hellsport, where the old Equinox used to be. Because I see Arcata Christian at the top of Union, but then Union Street Charter. Oh, where is it? Oh, okay, sorry. Pacific Union and Union Street kind of blurred together for me. There it is. Okay.
Yeah,
Yay.
and I was
Not looking
really
close enough.
Sorry. I was really happy to see North Coast Prep High School on there, because 11th Street is a nightmare too. So 11th and Q, that's wonderful. So hopefully that'll alleviate some speed on 11th.
Okay. Well, thank you for this. And as somebody that has been working with the city of Eureka and the county to get our weird random charter school that's in a part of, Eureka where people don't know that there's a school there, to, have response from sheriff and CHP and have proper signage. It's been a lot of legwork. So I want to thank you guys for bringing this forward. Go ahead, Stacey.
Thank you. I just wanted to address a couple of things that maybe people aren't aware of. But first of all, I do want to support our police department, because I can assure the public that it's not only their mission, but their sworn obligation to uphold the law. And I know that is absolutely their goal. And as many people probably know, we were significantly understaffed. And so when we were down about 10 positions, which puts an unbelievable amount of pressure on those that were staffed. And it was a lot of overtime and a lot of taking no vacations to be here in our town, keeping us safe. And, maybe there is not always the time to write a ticket in those situations because something else is going on, but they do write traffic tickets. And as the 10 more people that we have hired as they make their way onto things, I've already had people point out to me that they've seen more of a police presence and are grateful for that. And it will just keep improving, and we will have more ability to do those tickets. So it is absolutely something that they want to do. And we did hire a walkability expert. We collaborated with that. We've talked about that a couple times to come. Staff, council, public had several opportunities to walk the streets and really talk about how to make our community safer. And there was a lot of excitement about that. And I know that staff and we gave direction to work on that. And so staff is coming up with other ways other than just posting a sign to make sure that we all slow down and are safe.
All right. Well, with that, we'll take a motion in a second.
So I would move for adoption number of number 234-13, amending zoning number 167-36, a resolution of the Council of the City of Arcata establishing school zone speed limits on city streets and roads.
I will second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, that takes us through our business items on the agenda tonight, and that takes us to our last oral and written communication period. This time is provided for people to address the council on matters not on the agenda. Again, pursuant to the Brown Act, we cannot take action on items that are not listed on the posted agenda, and supported requests that require action will be set for a future agenda or referred to staff. You will have 3 minutes. If you're here in person, there you are, lining up. And if you're on Zoom, raise that hand, or if you're on your phone, press *9.
Okay, the 8th and 9th improvement project. I hope you all remember that. It's started quite a while ago with doing the research, and then you got into the engineering, and that was total about $850,000 that you approved just for that aspect of it. So now we're seeing a little bit of evidence of that being done on 8th Street and right next to the co-op. And I don't know if you've taken a look at it, but basically all of your entrances are gone now, except for one right next to the co-op there. So co-op is like telling us that they're really pissed off at you because there was no talking about the details of this. So they're losing 20 parking spots because they can't, well, go check it out. You have to, I don't know about the conversation part, but that's what they're saying. Their employees are pissed off, and you only have one entrance in off 9th Street now. It's going in the wrong direction of the parking spots. So you have to go all around the parking lot and to get into the other lanes. Last night when I was there was cars that were just driving over to I Street over the island on the sidewalk to get out of there, but there is a turning. The turn, you can count all the stalls that they're going to lose. 20 stalls they're going to lose. The city of Arcata is not paying anything for this, and they're going to have to like repaint the whole parking lot. And let's get into the whole reason behind this, the safety aspect of it. This was your reason for going this direction. So I'll point out the other one by the Ritas and the post office. You just completely redid that, and it's going to be pretty much exactly like that. So I would like to see you guys get on a bicycle, because it's supposed to be a bicycle lane, and then have a full pickup back out at any of those spots. And I'll tell you right now, it's not going to be a pretty picture. So I don't know what's going on with the city, but you guys are like novices when it comes to this. You spent $850,000 and you couldn't even get it right. You just screwed it up totally. It's not going to be safe. It's not going to be better. It was better how it was. And, you know, you got a lot of pissed off people at the co-op, I'll say that. And they're just starting to wake up to what's going on from this standpoint. You know, so I don't know what is going on, but you guys are just like, I don't know, it's a combination of this with planning commission in the city that it's like, you're like novices and you're like arrogant at the same time. You need to like walk and check these things out, because it's not even going to work out. It's already screwed up. So I like to know how you're going to address the co-op issue, because they're saying there was just this general idea, no details at all. But yeah, they even like passed this out, pointing to your website, and when you go there, and it's like no details on the entrances of the co-op.
I briefly do want to respond to that, because as a person that lives on 9th Street and walks that street pretty much every single day of my life, I have almost been hit by cars coming out of the 3 exits of the co-op parking lot countless times, more than I can count on my fingers and toes. It is incredibly dangerous for somebody walking on that sidewalk to have 3 points of encounter of a parking lot to get hit at. And it's actually incredibly unsafe. I also want to add that I met with the GM of the co-op, and I met with Assistant City Engineer David Case. I see him out there pretty much every day working with the construction crew, talking to co-op employees. He showed me the design that was, given to the co-op, and it is actually a very detailed and beautiful design that provides a lot of improvements to the parking lot, in my opinion, as somebody that walks 9th Street. And again, that was a project that was brought forth by the Plaza Improvement Task Force. It went through community input. It came before the council multiple times. There was a lot of opportunity for collaboration and public input, and we didn't hear anything about it until, I didn't, from anybody from the co-op, until shovels were gonna hit the ground and they got scared. So we go through this public process and we, go to the community and we talk to partners, and everything that I heard from David Case was that they had pretty robust input from the co-op. So that's all I gotta say about that. And it's not on our agenda, so I'm just responding to statements as allowed by this, and if anybody else has anything to say, that's fine. And then we'll go to our next commenter who's waiting patiently.
Could I, just a moment on this. This was a discussion back in, I don't know if it was 2012 or something. It was changing the street structure and making it like it was between H and I, and so it's changing around how you're going to be driving that in that area. And that was something that was discussed. You weren't living here then because you hadn't moved here yet, but it was something that was discussed at that time. We do have a new GM at Co-op that wasn't there previously, and he's only been there a couple of years. So, but I know this had been a long time project, and finally the money came around to make it work.
Go ahead, Joanne, please.
I may be or maybe not be on the co-op board, so I'm going to find out what reality is. My name's Joanne McGarry, and I just need to express how sad I am that I didn't get to say goodbye to Chief Brian Ahern before he's left his duty here in Arcata. He was a very kind and good person to me, helped me a lot in issues involving matters that the police needed to be involved in, but he was also just a very caring human being, and I do hope that we find an equally wonderful human being to lead our police force soon. Again, I want to talk to everybody on the city council individually about a very serious concern I have. And the other thing that was brought up at the last council meeting was the need for understanding about the American Rescue Plan Act monies that Arcata has received and their distribution. And I know that you have said you're going to put it on an agenda item, or that it will come up at a mid-budget review or whatever. I'd like to actually ask and request that we have a quarterly review of some of those expenditures, especially in the American Rescue Plan Act, because money, everybody wants a lot of that money, or everybody got some of that money, or everybody didn't get some of that money, and there's still some money left. And it was designed for a particular purpose, and it was brought up at the last meeting that some of that money was being utilized for the Green and Gold Corridor. So I just think it's important for transparency's sake and honesty's sake and clarity's sake that we get a sooner than later report on American Rescue Plan Act monies, and how much is left, how much went out, who it went out to, what it was being used for, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's really important for the people to know. So thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Do we have anybody online this evening hoping to comment?
We do not.
All right. Well, that takes us now to council and staff reports. Do we have any staff updates this evening?
I know this was mentioned earlier in early oral communications, but the city will be participating in the Great Shakeout tomorrow. So at 10:19, it is a good time to practice and make sure you have all of your preparedness for earthquakes.
We will be shaking out at school as well. All right. Well, council updates. Who did I start with last time? Okay, we're going to start with Alex this time then.
I remember the time when, I'm just somewhat amazed, but there was a time when the Arcata Police Department had the staffing to be able to stop anyone with one headlight or one tail light. And I don't know why that sort of sunk into my mind and is still there, but I cannot get over how many cars do not have two headlights. They only have one or one taillight. I think it's quite dangerous. And so I don't know if we can give any direction for the future, or if they have the police department actually cite people for that so they can have a correction. Sometimes they've been able to catch someone with none, and they're right there, and I'm in the crosswalk, and I tell them, you only have one headlight, and the wife says, you haven't gotten that fixed yet? And he said, well, I plan on it, but I said, it's really dangerous. But there are other people that I just can't catch, and they're all over, and they're on 101, and they're all throughout the city of Arcata, and I think it's not good, because you can't tell when you're driving with one headlight. Is that a motorcycle behind you, or is it a car or a truck? You don't know. And also at that time, I was driving with an officer who told me that's why they made those stops, because if somebody wasn't taking care of their headlights or their taillights, there may be other things going on that they needed to check. So at this rate, the way I look at it, we probably have 30 or 40 people that I notice that don't have headlights that function, both of them. So I don't know what those people are up to. So I wanted to, another thing is I have a couple of things that I probably should talk to Karen about and department heads. So I will do that, and otherwise, there we go.
Thank you, Alex. My only major update is Stacy and I had the opportunity to attend the Cal Poly Liaison meeting. We had some great presentations just about the facility updates that Cal Poly is doing, and all of the various projects that they're working on and finishing up and excited about. And so, trying to think of a few key updates from that. The biggest one, which I've actually had a couple people ask me about, you will see some very large cranes at the Craftsman Mall site. Those are like twice as high as the buildings are going to be. The buildings are not going to be that tall. That's how the cranes have to be built to be able to functionally build the building. So do not think that there is this building that is going to be as tall as that crane. That was one of the main points they drove home, because they're getting a lot of comments about that too. So I just wanted to announce that, but they are making a lot of progress at that site and are going to begin, you're going to be able to see things coming above the ground now and actually looking like buildings. And so they're still on track to have that project delivered, and you guys might have to help me with the date, but by fall 2025, right? And then the second tower by the spring semester. So looking forward to more student housing at that site, and hopefully collaborating with Cal Poly to be able to give a similar update that we get, just because there's so many little pieces to remember at our council meeting, hopefully coming up here. So it was a great meeting. We were back in person, and it was just really great to hear about all the updates. And then I gave the update earlier on the transit needs, but the green and gold route has been enormously successful. Ridership is way up compared to all, other routes there, and people are utilizing it and are excited about it. So that's all I got to say about that.
I just wanted to mention, I watched Joe Bishop, our building official, give a presentation to the Planning Commission, and he talked about that bottom being called a platform. I think that was the term he used, which you would build off of. And so we have the same kind of right now down on 101 around Indianola, you see those big, they're stamping something into the ground, and you see that up at the Craftsman Mall. But I thought that was an interesting presentation that he did on the building codes and how we can see what could happen in Arcata as far as development.
Not much exciting at HWMA. We had our audit, so yay. I just wanted to say I was really glad that the rabbi came by and spoke up at public comment. This has been a really hard couple of weeks for me and for the Jewish community, so I really appreciate how he's always just so positive and really just focuses on being kind to each other and doing good deeds. But I want to thank Chris Ortega from the Arcata Police Department for being so wonderful and coming to Chabad so much and making sure that everybody felt safe. It's a really scary time for everybody, and just do good for each other. We're a good community, we're a loving community, and so let's continue that.
Thank you, Meredith. I have two things. They're short. One, the chamber will be hosting Halloween on the plaza, so it'll be trick or treat again this year. So the plaza will be closed from 3 to 6, and when there's that many people on the plaza, it makes it much safer to be closed. And there will be some fun things happening. The Humboldt Lumberjack Marching Band will be there. There will be dancing witches and fire dancers. Now, the witches will not be us, and they'll be fire dancers. And on a more serious note, I know that we budgeted. I'm going to propose a agenda item. We have budgeted $30,000 for the extreme weather shelter, and I don't think we've committed that yet, or had that hasn't been handed out. And so I was thinking it would be, people are starting to ask and the weather's changing, so maybe we could have an update from the Arcata House on all the plans, because I know they have several things planned. So maybe if you guys are up for that.
Yes, please. Yes. And I just saw city manager write it down. Okay. Is that it, Stacey? Okay, great. The last thing we're going to do tonight is confirm a study session that we're going to have with the Planning Commission on Tuesday, October 24th, 2023 at 6 p.m. right here. And that is going to be with all of us, because that is going to be based on the general plan. So do we all confirm that? Beautiful. Confirmation. Okay. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.